Hey there, I'm Kevin Downey, and I run an agency called Kevin M. Downey, where we help B2B companies with their sales and marketing efforts. You can visit our website at kevinmdowney.com. Okay, today's topic, similar to one I covered recently, but I had a little different spin I wanted to throw in there on how to predict whether a sales rep or a business development rep will be successful, right? So first things first, take their resume and throw it out the window. Basically, it's not a qualifier, it's only a disqualifier. Okay, the number one way to predict whether someone is going to be successful, and when we say successful, remember, business development, we're talking cold outreach in most cases. In sales reps' case, they very rarely fail at sales itself when they get leads, prospects in front of them that have a pain point, decision maker with a need. Most sales reps do great. That's rarely the issue. The issue is business development. It's prospecting. That's really not a sales function. It's actually a marketing function. And it does get very confusing because it looks and acts like a sales function, but it's really not. It's a marketing function. So it is imperative to understand that psychometric assessments are the number one way to predict success in cold outreach and sales and business development, having to do cold outreach. It's the number one predictor for every job, actually. But the dots have to line up. If the dots don't line up, they're not qualified. We don't look at resume first. We look at assessment results. So we have some basic jobs already set up, some patterns, wiring patterns that we have set up in our traits, for example. And there are other good ones like that, like traits out there. Acumax, Culture Index, Predictive Index. Many of you might have heard of Predictive Index because that's been, I think, acquired. So that's a pretty big organization. But we use traits out of Canada. It's awesome. It is dead on accurate. It's laser accurate. And again, people have to be wired to do business development. They don't succeed at it because they don't try hard enough. And the reason they don't try is because they don't like it. Think about it. How many of us really like to do cold outreach and business development? Not very many people are hardwired for it. So if we have 400 recent, I had the staff run the numbers. I think we had 400 recent that went through the assessment. And for strong or good, out of 400, we maybe had 50 that were strong or good for a BDR role. And probably only 15 of those were strong, right? So they got to be wired to do the job, because if they aren't wired for it, they're not going to like it and they're not going to do it, right? And that's the number one failing point for sales reps. It's inactivity in the prospecting side. That's what always happens. And so again, I go back to the idea, and I know I'm repeating myself, if a sales rep was coming to you and has all of these glorious accomplishments on their resume, I don't even pay any attention to it, honestly, until we're doing an interview. I look at the resume, but we're always using assessment first to qualify them. And the reason why is because if someone was a really accomplished sales rep, account executive, account manager in an industry, first of all, very rarely are they unemployed. They have very long history in working for companies, mostly. They move up from sales to, let's say, VP or CSO or something. That's a different conversation. When we're talking about the sales role, they're not moving around a lot, number one, if they're successful. Number two, they're very rarely unemployed. If they are unemployed by some happenstance and they're still really good, and they can reach out to other people, the competitors from the company that they just left, and find employment pretty fast, right? Like when I worked in the golf business, I worked for Callaway, for example. The tailor-made regional manager, the Titleist regional manager, and other people knew who I was, right? Like I did what I was supposed to do, and let's say I did very well. And if that's the case, they knew who I was, right? That's how I ended up going from, say, Slazenger to Dunlop Maxfly to getting recruited by Callaway and TaylorMade at the same time. Look, people are going to know who they are if they're a successful sales rep in an industry. So it's going to be pretty rare that a really accomplished sales rep is going to be just applying to jobs on Indeed or on LinkedIn. Sure, it can happen. There's some, but it's not all that common. So you can take the resume with a grain of salt at best and set it aside. Again, I look at resumes as disqualifier. Basically, all I'm looking at is if the dots line up on the psychometric assessment, the dots line up, that's the qualifier. Now we're interviewing and looking at resume at the same time. The resume is a disqualifier. So if we've got a lot of job hopping, if we have all of these bloated numbers, but we've done 10 jobs in 10 years or 5 jobs in 5 years, that's telling me that there's no stick-to-itiveness there, right? There's just something not right with that candidate, because really accomplished salespeople don't do that. That's why I always talk to clients about hire based on qualification of assessment first, and we look at a very narrow group, say in business development, and then you're interviewing, You're trying to identify who the right fit is culturally and within your company as a good match for sales management or for owner or whatever. But we ultimately need to look at resume and say, would I rather take someone that's got all of these bloated accomplishments and done 5 jobs in 5 years? Or would I rather take somebody that's a little bit green or a newbie and the dots line up and they were super successful in college, they had 1 job so far, and coach them up for my company? It's going to take the latter all day long, right? So at the end of the day, psychometric assessment is the number 1 predictor of success for every job, but sales and business development in particular, and you only use the resume as a disqualifier. And I should have said earlier, you look at resume after assessment and then you remove people based on resume to then identify the short list of people you're going to interview. But that assessment result is the number 1 qualifier. Okay, so if you're hiring for sales and business development, I highly recommend that. Traits is a great product. If you want to go through us, we obviously run that for all of our U.S. applicants and candidates. You can visit our website at kevinmdowney.com. Really appreciate you being here. Thanks so much. Best of luck in business, and we'll talk to you soon. Thanks.